Welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
Are you really just along for the ride?
I'm always just along for the ride, just like our patrons.
Oh, just like our patrons. We don't have Ted here, so I have to somehow get Grant to talk about our patrons a little bit, but or not talk about them, but get me to the back so I can get to the patrons. Because the patrons are super important. Every show we take it a time to come out and try to just thank all the patrons for all the support that they've given us throughout the year or so that we've had our Patreon account set up. So I'll put the address if you want to become a patron right here. You guys can see it. You'll be able to see it right here. And then I'd like to thank Daniel, David, Jason, Joseph, Justin, Kyle, Lewis, Mike, Dominic, Phil, Rob, Robert, Russ, and Sean for their generous support of the show. And you know, it's been a while, so I'm gonna just say thank you to Grimbjorn the Old, who is Robert, who's the second Robert I always read in every show. He always gives every month as a little bit of support to the show, and that's awesome. So Grimbjorn the Old, thank you so much. The other thing that I do want to say is that provided that we are out of quarantine by any time this year, we're still working at getting swag to give away to all our patrons. So if you want to become a patron, that is still open, and you can do. We're gonna give swag away to patrons at any level. So $1, $2, $1 million. Whatever you want to, whatever you can. And I know that sometimes it's a little tight right now because of what's going on in the world, but anything is welcome. So, and I think I'm the only one who knows anything about the swag. I haven't shown any of the other co-hosts. So,
no, you haven't shown me anything, mate.
What's that?
I said you haven't shown me anything.
I know, because you didn't want to know. You liked it as a surprise. So.
You never asked.
I did ask. You need to settle yourself. Okay. Well, here we are bickering like an old married couple. So there's nothing like having on the show maybe a newlywed couple, and so some of you may recognize that bald-headed gentleman on the right of your screen is Bob from a previous episode, and the beautiful young lady to his right is Chrissy. They happen to be married, and they came on the show as I met them at Con of the Rings last year, and I guess I should stop talking and just let them introduce themselves. Hi guys, it's so good to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Hello.
Hey. So before we talk about the card that we want to talk about, I think it's important just to kind of get to know you guys a little bit. So, and Bob, this probably is going to be a slightly different episode than the one that we recorded with your friend Shane, because you probably aren't married to Shane, at least as far as I know, right?
As far as I know as well.
Right, okay, good. Chrissy, can you
have a different story?
Right, Chrissy, is that true? Is he married to Shane?
I'm just not married to Shane.
Okay, that's good. Okay, that's good. So, here's the thing. I've had a couple other couples on the show, so I've always asked this: How did you guys ever meet and fall in love? And then tell me how Lord of the Rings has played a role in that story.
Yeah. So I'm a couple years older than Chrissy. We both went to Purdue University. I'm from Chicago area. Chrissy is from northern Indianapolis. And on one of our college, we were part of the same Christian ministry that was there. And on a retreat, there's these variety shows that were just hot garbage. People put no effort into them.
And Chrissy, if you disagree with this at any time, interrupt Bob and give him the old wifely elbow to the rib cage. That like, what are you talking about? No. Okay, so continue, Bob.
Yeah, it's people just didn't really put much effort into it, and I love going big or going home. So the kind of group that I was with, the first year we decided to recreate the Robin Hood Men in Tights dance in full outfit.
We're men in tights. Tights.
We did the kick flip where we flip every other person. It was following year, people were starting to up their game, so we said we got to up it more, and we decided to recreate the Circle of Life from The Lion King in full costume. Like, guys spent hours in dorm rooms sewing animal costumes together. And so the very first time Chrissy saw me was dressed as Mufasa on stage performing the Circle of Life. And then we didn't talk.
It was love at first sight, right, Chrissy?
We didn't even know each other. Was the crazy thing. Like, we found out when we started dating, like, oh my gosh, these pictures of us on Facebook from years ago were at all these same events, but we never knew each other.
Oh, that's funny.
So how did we meet, I guess?
Yeah, so
officially?
then, like, fast forward, 5 years or so?
Yeah, about 5 years. 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years. And I move up to Chicagoland for work after college, and I'm getting involved with, like, serving in the youth group at our church. And just so happens that Bob also was serving in the youth group as a leader. And I'm like, oh, Bob, he went to Purdue. You should meet him. And I was like, okay. So we were friends for a while. And then I think just one day we were both kind of like, like looking side to side and realized that we were both kind of in the same place, same time. And we'd been friends for a while and decided to give it a go. So
yeah.
Yeah. Now we've been married for about 7 months.
We got engaged May 4th of last year.
Yes.
So tomorrow.
Hey, happy engagement day.
Yeah.
Almost.
We got engaged. And as far as Lord of the Rings goes, she had never seen the movie. She had seen part of.
I'll correct this one. So I had seen part of the movies, and I had seen like The Hobbit, which we won't get into that. But then, but then when I met Bob there's another couple that we love hanging out with, and they're big Lord of the Rings fans as well. So we do like an annual marathon every year and watch it together. So that was kind of like part of our connection there too.
Yeah, so we just watched the 3 extended versions either in one long Saturday or on a Friday night, and then through Saturday, and just kind of make a little weekend out of it.
Oh, that's cute. That's cool. My wife has no interest in Lord of the Rings. She's seen the movies and done some cultural things, but she has no like real interest in knowing the game or anything. So anytime I ever see a couple in the game like you guys who apparently have things other than Lord of the Rings that provide a basis for your relationship, I think it's really sweet to see. So way to go.
I mean, thank you. It's really a testament to, I think, Chrissy more than me, because she's so willing to. She's been so willing to. This is kind of part of being married as well. Like, so willing to try things that I like, and just at least give them a shot and see. Like, maybe I like them, maybe I don't. But I'm gonna at least try them out. And so, like right now, we're going through the sagas together. Last night, we just barely got Frodo to Rivendell safely.
Oh.
He was not unharmed though. On his way there.
And Chrissy, do you enjoy playing? Like, what was your reaction when you were like? Because I mean, sometimes guys don't wear the dork flag on their sleeves so much, and you're like, so like here's Bob. Bob sits you down and he's like, Chrissy, you got to tell you something, and you're like, oh no, here it comes, right? And you're like, he's like, I play this game and I go to conventions for this game. What do you think? Like, how did that all go down from your point of view, Chrissy?
Yeah. So, I mean, Bob's always like, since I've known him, even as a friend, when we'd have game nights with friends, like he'd always be the guy, like leading the charge or explaining how to play to people. So I kind of just knew that was something that he enjoyed. But when we started dating, and you had just started playing, I think with Nathan a lot, you were like, so this is like the nerdiest thing that I do. And I was like, And so then actually, like, we sat down with his friend Nathan, and the three of us they explained it to me and like helped me play through. And I was like, wait, so this is the nerdiest thing? I mean, like, yeah, it's nerdy, but like I don't know. In my mind, I'm like, I could think of nerdier things.
Right. There's a lot worse things you could be doing on your Saturday nights, right?
I was trying to soften the blow.
I was actually like, I was thinking it was going to be worse than it was. So I was delightfully
Surprised. Yeah.
surprised.
Yeah.
When I was like, oh, this is actually not that bad.
And do you enjoy the game? Like, are you now like fully indoctrinated? Love the game? Because I mean, it's very rare that you see somebody at a convention. Because you were at Con of the Rings. This is how we met, Bob and Chrissy. You brought Ted to Con of the Rings last year, and this is how I met you guys. And like, so are you still just kind of on the outskirts, or would you call yourself like fully indoctrinated into the game?
I don't know about fully. I do enjoy the game, but I'm not like in a place where I want to start building decks or I'm thinking about cards all the time. But I do really enjoy it, and it's been fun I've actually just been playing the same deck like for a long time, and so I've gotten to know the cards better. I think the hardest thing for me as like a beginner was there's so many cards, and they all do different things, and trying to figure out what do I put with what, and that was a little overwhelming when I went to the con, but it's just like as you take your time and you play more, you just kind of
Was it a challenge there with? I mean, the card pool. One of the knocks the game had from the very beginning is the card pool was small, because when you get an adventure pack, you get 9 different cards. You get 3 copies of each of those cards plus here, whatever. But I mean, you get a very limited number of cards. But now there's been a bajillion adventure packs, and a gaggle of deluxe expansions. I mean, there's well over 2,000 player cards now. So, like, how do you adjust to having like, it's like information overload, right? Like, what's the way to deal with this here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think after con, I was like, I need like a month break from not playing at all. My brain was just like fried at the end of it, but yeah, I think once you get the hang of it, and if you have somebody that has played a lot and they're teaching you, that's really helpful.
Yeah, and you got to play some fun things in the con. Like Chrissy got to be part of the team where we beat the challenge where you fail every sailing test.
That was so fun.
In Voyage Across Belgrade. That was real hard. We failed a couple times, and then we finally beat it by the skin of our teeth. And as a 4-player, that was a great, fun challenge to do.
Right. And Chrissy, do you have a favorite quest that you particularly like? If you think about, I mean, I don't know how much of the game you guys own together, but like, is there a favorite quest that you like? You can look at Bob and say, I like that one with the dwarf ally objective Nalir or something. No, I don't know.
No, I have not got to that garbage yet.
Okay, good.
Because I love it.
Like, you have a dorky habit, but it's not gotten that low that you've gotten to the dwarf treachery that exists on your board for the whole. No, anyways.
I feel like the sailing test one was really, the sailing quests are really fun because they kind of give a little bit of a different feel. And we also what was that one card that was like, you throw a deer on the ship and it makes
the great hunt. I told you, it's like
yes.
you catapult. We love the visual of like catapulting a deer on the Corsair warship, and it just lands. Everyone pauses, and then the boat sinks. It's like funny visual. And that's how we beat that quest. Is we needed to get rid of all the ships in play, and we were going to die if we went another round, and we great hunted the Corsair warship.
Oh, that's great.
So I don't know if that's my favorite, but that's probably the most memorable one.
Yeah.
I
didn't tell her about what happens on Fog on the Barrow Downs, and she had a big old army. The deck she loves to play is Tactics Aowen, Hirgon, Tactics Imrahil.
Okay.
So and it's just I've tweaked it over the years. I think it's my favorite deck I've built, and I think it's a power deck in every sense of the word, and it can overcome so much. And I didn't tell her what happens in Fog on the Barrow Downs. So she had this big old army. She had this big old army out, and then I saw a great barrow come out, and I was laughing my head off.
I was mad. Like, I almost had to get up and like walk away for a few minutes to like compose myself, because I was like, this game is stupid. Like, why?
Okay, so you are fully indoctrinated in the game. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Like, if you can feel that strongly about cards, then that's good.
Oh man,
she had 3 allies that she had worked so hard to get out last night when in the race to Rivendell, and we got hit by that treachery that it's -1 willpower to all allies, and then do 2 damage to any ally that has 0. all tactics allies have
Right.
maybe
700.
one
700. Oh, wait. I'm sorry.
these 3 big time allies
Yeah.
out, and then all 3 of them get nuked.
Right.
and
I didn't even
killed.
get a chance to use them. Like I was like, okay, perfect. Now I can like get going. I can get my stuff rolling here,
So
and then just
funny.
got wiped.
That's
like,
so funny.
and
Well,
Bob
you
was laughing at me. It was so rude.
and it's a cooperative game, Bob. You're not supposed to
Oh, yeah.
laugh.
it's so
It's
great
cooperative, but
to
B, she's your wife. You do not laugh at your wife.
joy that you get of a player who is enjoying it. They think the game is like
Yeah.
more losing, and then they just get trucked by a treachery. It's just
It's like, boom. Oh, man.
she played Karn Doom. She was wondering what the big deal was at Con of the Rings, and we're like, fine, we'll show you a game. And we had to scoop halfway through the first round. Like revealing the encounter cards. That was great.
It's every once in a while there's a game that happens like that you just get through and you're like, I don't see what the big deal is. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you go back to it and it's like, oh, you get lucky or something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love seeing those notes of new players in Discord talking about. I just keep journeying on the Anduin. I'm going to try Escape from Dol Guldur.
Yeah.
Child.
I'll tell this one story and then we'll get into the card. But the last night there was somebody on the LOTR LCG Facebook group, and they played Passage Through Mirkwood like 4 or 5 times, and they finally beat it to get all the stuff down. And they're like, and they were talking about it. And I was like, great, this is so awesome. This game is so awesome. Tell me what you think of Journey Along to Anduin in 3 minutes. Like 3 minutes into the game, tell me what you think. Like, because that's when the hill troll comes out, right?
Oh,
and then
yeah.
and so he was, so he got back to me and I was like, what? Like, it was just so funny. Like, those are the moments that we relish because we remember those moments ourselves. Like when we first have to hit the hill troll, or whatever it happens to be. Like that's. Anyways,
Write the passage for this game. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we could sit here and talk generalities all night long, but I think we should talk about a card, don't you guys?
Absolutely.
And so, when we were talking about coming on, we were talking about this deck where you guys were bringing Hirgon, Tactics Aowen, and Tactics Prince Imrahil along, and I think the card that you chose was one of those 3. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so what card was it? And do you have a copy that one of you could read it, or do you have Hall of Beorn up or something? So
yeah, we chose Tactics Imrahil.
Oh, and it's sleeved too. Good.
Yeah.
Good job.
So Tactics Imrahil is an 11 threat hero, Tactic Sphere. He has 2 willpower, 3 attack, 2 defense, 4 hit points. He is Gondor Noble Warrior, and he has a combat action. And it is spend 1 resource from Prince Imrahil's resource pool to search the top 5 cards of your deck for an ally who shares at least 1 trait with him. Put that ally into play. Shuffle your deck. At the end of the phase, if that ally is still in play, shuffle it into your deck. Limit once per round. It was a mouthful.
I was gonna say I think he's got the biggest word wall of any hero. Like the amount of words on his game text is crazy. But he's pretty good, right? He's aight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you guys talk a little bit. How is Prince Imrahil used in the deck that you specifically have constructed here? So Chrissy, Bob, whatever, I don't know, you guys can fight over who talks about it, but what's his role? What's he doing? How's he being used? Stuff like that.
So in general, I think there are 3 or 4 types of heroes that exist. Some heroes are just not that good, and you have limited use cases for them.
Okay.
That they have to be in a specific deck, and they are not the centerpiece of that deck.
Sure.
There
Support
are
heroes, so to speak.
Yeah. They're pretty limited use. There are other heroes that are splash heroes that will go in certain deck types. They can go in a lot of different deck types, and they are just, I need access to lore. I'll throw Lore Pippin in there, and then there may be other different hero types, and then there are heroes that are heroes you construct an entire deck around because their ability is so powerful, so versatile. You're not going to splash Elrond in. You're going to build a deck around him.
And I would hazard a guess that if you're playing Elrond, you're probably playing Vilya, and so it's your Vilya deck and not your Elrond deck.
Right. Or in the 12-player Epic Siege of Innuminos a couple weeks ago, I had an Elrond lore deck that was a healing deck. There's so much damage that gets dished out that the other two heroes were there solely to keep the threat down, and he was there for boosting healing across the table.
Right.
Did you have Merlond with that deck?
Yeah.
Did you have Merlond?
I had Messenger of the King Gleowine.
Okay.
So
okay, that's worthy.
So Imrahil is just you build a deck around him, and so this deck that we have is actually a burglar turn deck because we only had about 2 attachments in it anyway. So
okay.
So it's stuffed with 53, 54 allies and 5 events or so.
Yeah.
Oh, and you really enjoy this deck, Chrissy? Is this?
I love it. Mostly because it just gives me the flexibility to do whatever we need to do. So like his Prince Imrahil's like thing, his trick is that it's a combat action, so you can kind of do it whenever you need it, and you just can get so many good cards. He kind of acts as like a toolbox, so if you're building your deck and you're putting all these allies in that have, awesome traits and whatnot, you spend 1 resource and you can use a card like Boromir,
Right.
And I like decks that just, kill a lot of things. So that's fun.
Is this where we tell the audience about your yeah.
Go ahead and tell them.
Yeah. So I also use the Tactics AON. And so anytime that I decide I want to use her trick, I'll just yell like, I am no man. And then I just flick the enemy card across the table.
No man can kill me. Die now.
I am no man.
And then I decided I'd do that for every enemy that I kill. So I just always flick them across the table, and Bob's, oh gosh, be careful, don't bend my card.
them.
But
Yeah.
he for me.
Corrals them into the discard pile.
He lets me kind of like flick them across. I like it. Makes me feel like I'm doing something.
So is the deck that you're using a Gondor deck? Like, is it primarily Gondor, or is it just a whole bunch of big beefy Tactics allies?
Well, that's what the cool thing about Imrahil is he's a Gondor noble warrior. So
right, he's got all the traits that you want.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and you could. I mean, there are so many other. We won't have the time to talk about his versatility.
I know.
My friend Nathan, Mr. Space Bear, slaps an elf friend on him.
Right, elf
and
friend.
then slaps elf friend on Lothiriel.
Right.
And he has a deck where he plays ally Elrond like twice in a turn and is just constantly churning ally Elrond, which is that in and of itself is absurdly powerful. So Imrahil's ability is so versatile. So like Chrissy was saying Boromir. Like Chrissy put out Boromir because she saw for 1 resource, I can defend a Nazgul, have Boromir ready, and defend the second Nazgul.
Right.
Like, you're just not going to say no to 2 defenses
for one
with
resource.
1 resource.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So you see a card like Boromir come and then go, and you think, I just lost Boromir. But then you said, well, I only paid 1 for it. So it's not horrible. It's just a chump. Like at that point, it's just kind of a chump blocker that happens to be pretty decent, right?
Right. I mean, there's how many cards? I don't know, 3, 4, 5 cards in the deck that there are 2 or 3 of that you pay 1 resource and you can get oftentimes 2 defenses. Like a Soldier of Dol Amroth comes into play as a chump and reduces the cost of feint to 0 if you have a feint in your hand.
Right.
Like there's so many. Soldier of the White Tower or whatever that guy's Guardsman of the White Tower Watchman.
Yeah, that one.
Is he can defend an attack and then you take the second one undefended and it just goes on hit. Like it's. Or what's your favorite one to pull out?
Oh, I love using the Marksman of Lorien because for one resource you get like good attack. You can, it's ranged, so you can help people across the board.
Right.
And then you're also reducing the
Defense.
defense,
Right.
for 2. And that's all for one resource. It's like a lot of bang for your buck, kind of.
Yeah. Is it bad that it's just a combat action? Or is that when you like, would it matter? Is this when you need to use it most, or would it be better to be just an action?
I mean, it would of course be better if it was just a straight action.
Yeah.
I think making it just a straight action, he would probably be the most powerful hero in the game. I'm glad it's not an action. I already think he's really high up there personally. Because we were talking
he
earlier.
only has a couple things I think that are downfalls for him.
Yeah.
So, for example, like his threat's pretty high.
Right.
So that's kind of, you could debate that that's like a downfall for him. And then also his traits are pretty beefy. So if you're thinking about, like some of those characteristics or traits, whatever you want to call them.
Stats,
the stats, sorry. I'm really new to all the
cool.
terms. But
That's fine.
the stats, like they're not getting, some of them are not being used well. And so
Right.
I think that's probably a couple things.
If Tactics Theoden's on the table, he's questing for 3, which is incredible. And even 2 in Tactics is excellent.
I know.
But you leave him up and he can hit for 3. The only other hero that hits harder than him, base stat in Tactics, is Aragorn, because he has the global -1.
Right.
He defends for 2, and if you put a Gondorian shield on him, he's now an 8 defender. Which is, Imrahil, he has some wasted stats because they're spread out and you don't have readies on him, but he's a stat monster, and even without his ability, he's incredibly powerful.
Right. Grant, what do you think of Tactics Imrahil? You've been so quiet back there. We almost forgot about you. What's going on?
I'm just looking over Tactics Imrahil and all the things that you can do with them. And they've put the nail on the head. If you high on elf friend in you can pull out some pretty beefy allies like of Legolas and although they do also share the warrior trait. But I'm also thinking across the board, if you've got a Celeborn there and you're pulling out a Sylvan, it's boosted stats on top of just coming out for 1, you're going to just end up wrecking the entire board.
Oh yeah, we got Galadon archers in the deck, which come out, they do a damage to an enemy that's not engaged with you, and then they're ranging for 3 with Celeborn. That's real powerful.
Who's got Celeborn?
You do in your deck across the table.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure that I didn't. I was like, wait, we haven't talked about Celeborn with this. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole section of the community that is elf friending Imrahil just to get him in. There's not as much as many Sylvan heroes in Tactics as we would like. I guess there's Legolas, but so
he does like Chrissy was saying, his toolbox does almost whatever you need. We played a Knight of Minas Tirith for 1 to pull down Bill Ferny, so he couldn't stay up in the staging area. Right. Using Knight's response, she'll play an Envoy of Pelargir and get the resource back for the chump. We'll play a Soldier of Erebor, which is a leadership card, but he has the built-in ready, so you can get 2 defenses. Or you throw in Beorn, ally Beorn, and you get an 8 attack for 1 resource. I mean, all these times of getting 2 defenses for the price of 1 or an 8 attack, you just
the smile on Chrissy's face just when you said Beorn with 8 attacks, she was like, "Oh yes." It was just great.
And Chrissy's smart about it. I mean, you won't use the resource if you don't need it.
Right, yeah. Because there have been some times where, I'd say 90% of the time I'll use the resource, but sometimes I don't because I might not need it. And I'm like, well, then I'll just use him for questing or I don't know, something else.
Well, and what that does is it gives you resources for next round.
I can use him for that.
That then when you have Hirgon on the table, like this deck's power and Imrahil's power is I think his 2 benefits are you can ramp those resources for future rounds and build an army that sits out on the table. And ideally you play your ranged characters on the table and then you're pulling in big defenders so that you have this ranged army on the table and then you're able to defend whatever comes out. And it's just like the encounter deck can't keep up. with that pure level of pure combat. And then you learned the really valuable lesson about.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Like just in the first couple rounds
Yeah.
is usually like when you're, the first couple of rounds are probably the hardest or most important in terms of making sure that, you're not going to just have to scrap and restart. So I think Imrahil gives a lot of stability across like the table of making sure you can make it through.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting when you say this, that you're playing with a deck that has primarily allies in it so that you're not whiffing. I think one of the things that is good about this is you look at the top 5 cards, but you get to put the ones that you aren't using back in your deck. So you're probably not going to whiff, and you're probably also going to be able to see those cards at some other point. So, if you have a choice of Beorn or Gandalf, those are hard decisions to make, but you put them back in your deck. It's not like a very good tail. When you use a very good tail, you have to discard the cards and you don't get to see them again. So keeping them in your deck can sometimes be good, and I always think that, shuffling up your deck is not horrible to do, because sometimes you get, I don't know, they call it card dead. Your top deck, you're drawing cards off the top of your deck all the time, and you're like, ugh, I'm not getting anything that I want, and it's frustrating. So,
well, this deck. You typically Imrahil, you see around mid game, you start to top deck because you've played all your allies you can, and there's not really any card draw aside from Legolas.
Right.
But it doesn't really matter. You don't want to be drawing a ton of cards in your hand because then you have more targets for Prince Imrahil.
Right.
And no one's going to say no when you pay 1 resource to get Beorn in play. Like, it just, it's so powerful.
See, this is why I love having guests on the shows, because now I have like 17 other like decks in my head. I'm thinking of going like a million down the line. I don't know.
It's if you've never played with him or built a deck. The first time I saw this in play, I didn't like him at all when he first came out. And then I was playing Attack on Dol Guldur with Nathan, Mr. Space Bear, and Ted, actually.
Okay.
So it was a family affair, grandpa, father, grandson together. And Ted brought an Imrahil, a Tactics Imrahil deck, and it handled combat for the 3 of us against Attack on Dol Guldur. And it did it. It wasn't even a stretch for it, and it was incredible to see that in play. And so from that point on, I built one, and they've just been tweaking it. And Chrissy handles combat every single time we play. This deck handled combat in like a 4-player Siege of Numinos game. It vomits allies, and Imrahil stabilizes the table at the beginning. It's really powerful.
He's the nauseating agent. What's the thing that what's the word that means to cause somebody to be, I don't know. he's the nauseous generator guy. Anyways, whatever. So here's the one question. I know that we're up against time, so I don't want to keep you too long, but I will say that, is there another hero that can do the same thing? Or like if somebody is running Prince Imrahil in a different deck, maybe the leadership version or something, is there a different card that you could put in for Prince Imrahil and still get the same thing, especially on this deck?
That's a great question.
You're going to have to answer that one.
Chrissy, I know your answer is no. Nope, there is not.
I'm like,
well, so there's one hero we use that I always bring this deck to every con or table or whatever I come to, and I have Mablung as a side hero.
Right.
Typically, the person I have to switch out is Eowyn, which, especially in a 4-player game, I don't mind if I switch her out.
Right.
Because then I'm engaging enemies and just more resources to feed to Hirgon for getting allies out faster. Switching Imrahil out, you lose the card draw. Like, you don't have card draw on this deck, so it actually really slows it down. That's what I was kind of saying earlier. Like, you build Imrahil is so powerful that you build a deck around.
Right, he's the primary hero that you're like. So, so the answer is no, really. Like, this is this would be an Imrahil deck. He's the linchpin in the deck.
As insane, yes, as insane as it is to say, if I have to have a hero die when I'm playing this deck, Eowyn will be the first to die, typically, out of the game. which is insane to say.
She
but
is
she's
no man.
arguably the best hero in the game.
Yeah, that's
She's arguably the best hero in the game, and I would pick her to die first because Hirgan and Imrahil are just so. That combo is so powerful. Imrahil would be the last to die in that deck,
Right.
because of what he does and what he can do.
Okay. Well, I think we could talk for another 45 minutes, hour about this, but I don't want to monopolize your whole night here, So, should we ring this, Grant? Should we ring Tactics Imrahil?
Let's do it.
Okay. Grant's like, let's do it. Yep, we're doing it.
Absolutely, I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah, yep. Okay. Well, for those people who don't know or maybe new to the show, we have a highly arbitrary yet scientific system where we rank a card on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the best card in the game. It is the one card to rule them all, and 10 is the card that we throw back into the fiery chasm from whence it was made. It's the worst card in the game. So, Chrissy and Bob will give you the option. There's 4 of us, so do you want to rank the card 1, 2, first, second, third, or fourth, or sixth?
You want to go first, second, third, or fourth?
maybe third.
You heard it here first, folks.
Well, what
She's
about
going third.
okay? How about you, Bob?
I'll go second.
Second. Okay, and I'll go first. Okay, so
Best part.
heroes are kind of interesting because heroes, when I rank heroes, I always rank them on whether like how often I'm drawn to them. And everything that you say, Bob and Chrissy, is absolutely true on Prince Imrahil. Prince Imrahil is powerful. He's got great stats and things like that. But for some reason, I'm not usually drawn to playing him. So I have to agree on what you're saying, but I also have to take into account my own play styles and how I do this. So I think he's powerful, and I think he's got great stats, and he can do anything, and he's doing everything you need him to do in a tactics deck. But I think that I'm going to have to give him a 4, just because I'm not reaching for him as often as I would for other heroes. So, Bob, what's your ranking?
I've played a lot of combat decks, and I've seen a lot of combat decks in action, and very rarely have I seen a deck be more effective at combat, defense, all sorts of stuff. I mean, you can play Oath of Aeorl and wipe the board if you want. Like, there's just
Right.
There's so many, and the toolbox that's available. It's very rare to see a combat deck, in my opinion, work more effectively than Imrahil as the linchpin in this particular deck, and Imrahil in general. So I personally give him a 2. I just think
I thought you were like setting up to give him a 1 right there. I thought
no,
that was your.
There are certain decks that he just, if you put him in there, he's not gonna be as effective. Which that's okay.
Yeah.
He's not a sneak attack that just can go in every single deck everywhere, or an unexpected courage.
That's true.
But when you do use him, though, I just think it's unbelievably powerful.
Okay, Chrissy, make sure you
Yeah,
get it right. I'm just kidding. No pressure.
No, yeah. So, okay. So I agree with all that you just said, Bob, but
She agrees
have some
with
of
you.
it already. But I think for me, just because I am newer to the game and I don't know all of I've never built decks and I don't really know
Sure.
exactly what I'm talking about fully yet. I think I'd probably give him a 3 just because what I have used him for and how I've played, and it's kind of fitting my style of play.
Sure.
He works so well, and so, but I also can't, go higher just because I haven't done my due diligence and
No, that's okay.
learning the card.
It's-
So
it's-
that's where I'm coming in at 3.
Highly arbitrary, yet scientific. Right. So it's fine. Okay, Grant, what do you think?
I'm going to ring him a 4. He's a brilliant card, but he doesn't usually. I've tried building decks with him, but he just doesn't fit my game style. He's brilliant at what he does. I've seen him work to a great extent, but just not for me. At least not at this point in my play style. I might decide to change it up eventually, and you never know.
As soon as we can wrench Grimbjorn the Old out of your hand. And
Exactly.
No.
Change your mind, Grant, if I said I've beaten Mount Doom with this deck solo?
That would be amazing.
Well, Bob and Chrissy, I appreciate you spending some time on today, coming out and being with us. And, you know, we would love to have you back on the show sometime.
It's a pleasure.
Great. Thank
Love
you
to
for
be
having
back.
us.
We're looking forward to hopefully seeing you guys at Count of the Rings.
Yeah. If it's going.
Yeah.
If it's going, I'm going.
We'll see you. We'll see you in the lobby at 2 a.m.
I can't wait. It's a great time to meet people. Is right after traveling for so long. So,
Well, nothing ever good happens after 3, so you know.
you were fine on the cutoff. So
right. Okay, everybody, have a great day and join us again as we talk about more cards. See ya. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username Card Talk 2018. Or you can search the RSS feed cardtalk2018.libsyn.org for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at Card Talk 2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.